Hey man, I got your text. What's this cool new game you're playing? Oh dude, you're gonna love this. It's got that hack and slash combat like the Nier games. I feel like I'm dancing around my enemies. The boss fights are kinda tough. Some of the patterns mix me up a bit. Not too bad, but kinda like Souls. And it's got that anime art style just like Genshin. Genshin? Dude, what is this, Tower of Fantasy 2.0? You're playing a Genshin clone instead of Genshin Impact? Well, it's kinda like Genshin, but it's got some stuff that Genshin doesn't have, like these boss fights and a monster collecting system. Genshin has bosses! Genshin has world bosses, we do them to ascend our characters, and you're telling me they're ripping off Palworld too? Dude. Palworld ripped off Pokemon, and Genshin ripped off Breath of the Wild. Genshin is a completely unique idea, and it's the best game to ever come out. There is nothing that can be even remotely close to Genshin. So, what did you say this game was again? Wuthering Waves, man. It's only in beta right now, but it's good stuff, dude. Give it a chance. Paimon? No Paimon. Really? I'll see you on release, man. See you on release, bro. Wuthering Waves is on a lot of people's minds right now in the gacha community. Some people are upset another company is trying to make an open world gacha game, even though said game ripped off another open world game, and this one is mostly doing its own thing. Others are excited for this game, hoping it will provide things that Genshin Impact could not.
Please, sir, I want some more.
What?
Such as some challenging content, a more mature theme, and one thing that is 100% a positive, a skip button. This video will be my first impressions on Wuthering Waves and why you need to give this game a shot to succeed, because no, it's not a Genshin ripoff as much as fanboys will say it is, and yes, it's doing something special. Wuthering Waves, much like its predecessor, Punishing Grey Raven, is a hack and slash action RPG but in an open world format. Being developed by Kuro Games, the same developers of PGR, a game known for its female Virgil and boss fight solo montages that you may or may not have seen because the marketing for PGR was pretty much non-existent. Wuthering Waves takes what they've learned from that game and is applying it to an open world style of game, and it feels well made. The game is rough around the edges with some optimization issues such as FPS drops, stutters, translations aren't entirely complete yet, but the core gameplay loop, the open world, music, atmosphere, combat, and yes, despite what you heard, even the story are relatively great. There are some minor gripes I'll discuss here, but a disclaimer. I have not attempted the endgame content yet, and I feel like that is worth its own video. I don't want this to be bloated, so I won't be talking about that. More so what you can expect from the game's opening hours, and why I think this game is doing something right. So let's start with the story. Admittedly, this is where I feel the game needs a bit of polishing. Not because the story was bad, or because it's not engaging, but the pacing of the first two acts doesn't feel as impactful as I'd like to be pulled into the world of Wuthering Waves. Without boring you with all the details, the game spends a lot of time standing around and yapping. If you've played Genshin, you're probably used to this, but I think it's an inherent negative and poor storytelling. Not every story segment needs to be this amazing 4K, 120 FPS, ray trace cutscene where I can see sweat drip from Jian's forehead to the floor, but there are better ways than standing around and yapping. There's a lot of exposition at the start of Wuthering Waves, which is fine because they need to establish the world, but aside from the cutscene with the dragon and when the main character learns about tacit discords, that's the name of the monsters of the game, or TDs for short, aside from these two moments, those opening hours will be boring to a new player. A better way to explain the lore relating to the Sentinels, Magistrates, and what's going on in the world of Wuthering Waves would either be through some moving illustrations, as this wouldn't be as expensive as full-blown cutscenes, or just have the players deliver the dialogue as we walk to the first city. It'd do a great job of keeping the pace going and having the player interact with different systems without halting the pace. The story quality itself is pretty good. Nothing groundbreaking happens in the first half of Act 1, but the world building is good and the cutscenes have been stellar for the most part. The first boss's cutscene was changed from CBT-1, and admittedly the change does make him less menacing, but considering this is an onboarding process for players, and the latter cutscenes were good and action-packed, I don't feel bothered by that change. The only other gripe would be the story starts off with a "yay, you're special to everyone and we all love you" vibe. But considering this is a post-apocalyptic world with actual struggles you see later on in the story, and nobody should know you at the start, it feels a little dumb. I heard this was a complaint from the Chinese player base to make the other characters friendly because originally the NPCs were standoffish to you, but the latter makes more sense. It is what it is. This doesn't ruin the game for me. I think giving the player character room to grow and establish themselves as a good person through actions would have been better, but that's not what we got. The main character is voice acted, which is one of the best things for me. I'm glad they don't just say 2 lines and never speak again. None of us look anything like this character. I don't know, maybe you do, but otherwise it doesn't make sense why they don't have their own voice. Especially when it's not a character we created, so to me this is a positive. The world quests are whatever for the most part. The side quests and the exploration quests or world quests if you've played Genshin, which are bigger side quests but non-voice acted quests, can be skipped dialogue wise, which is a 10 out of 10 irrefutable good thing for the game. Some people will pay attention to the main story, some people will pay attention to the main story and the side quests, and some of us just want to play the game and not care for the story. The main story itself was not skippable aside from a few exposition sequences once you get to the first city, and after you leave, which is okay as some of this was just yapping and unrelated to the plot. In my opinion, unless said sequence has direct things to do with the protagonist, villains, or advancing where we are in the story, it should be able to be skipped. Skipping opens up the market to more players, as now those who just want to focus on exploration, combat, or doing stuff with their friends won't have to worry about the backstory of this flower and why the flower birthed the universe in a non-voice section that typically only has one nice cutscene at the end. Not saying these are what the world quests of Wuthering Waves are about, some of them had some intriguing sections, but this isn't something for every player, so not every player should be subjected to this. Skip button good, I hope it stays for the full release. One highlight I won't spoil is the first character quest for Jian. That quest was really good, there was culture buildup for the Midnight Rangers, backstory for Jian, and some great visuals in the open world, and other sections, so as long as the future character quests follow a similar quality and expand the lore of Wuthering Waves, then there's a lot to look forward to for casuals or story buffs. I highly recommend giving the story in Wuthering Waves a shot, because aside from the great spectacles, the writing is solid. It's not top tier yet, but there were some really great moments, such as everything relating to the Midnight Rangers and the antagonists currently. There is another character quest, but I haven't done it yet, so I can't comment on that one. The story constantly builds into world space, so let's talk about that. How is the world of Wuthering Waves? Does it feel good to explore? The activities in Wuthering Waves are very similar to Genshin in the sense that a lot of the activities are going around to scrounge up currency of this game to grind for wishes. If you didn't like that about Genshin, then you probably won't like that about Wuthering Waves, but the systems themselves are good. The puzzles are very fast if you can already see the solution, there is no weird delay when activating stuff or putting pieces into a puzzle board. I've sped through many of these and it feels nice not being bogged down by one puzzle for a long period of time. There are plenty of combat encounters, whether these are world bosses or random mobs, and if you're worried about the overworld being some stressful alternate reality hell, it's not that. It's very chill to roam around and kill the mobs for farming or to just explore. That's not to say there isn't challenging content in the game for hardcore fans, but do not go into this thinking the world boss is the difficulty you're looking for. That's stuff for everyone to do, and it's good that it's not gruesome. There is also some cool minor stuff. Let's take in Genshin, if you have to pick up like this floating particle to bring it over to a rock to break. In Wuthering Waves, you can just pick it up, but then you can just chuck it straight at whatever you're looking at. Or if you need to burn something, you can chuck a flaming orb to burn stuff. Things like that are very like minor things, but they make it so you're not wasting your time constantly going point A, point B, point C, point Z, etc. and then like keep going like that. So that was really nice, and there's a few little things like that, so I do recommend giving the exploration a shot if you're interested in the game. The atmosphere is beautiful. Some areas are very colorful, and some of the far sites like this giant tree look great in the distance and when you get close. But there are also some muted settings that look desolate and messed up, with broken down buildings, no NPCs settling down aside from scavengers and TDs. There is a lot to the world, and I think players that are maybe looking for more Genshin, or hell, if you're a Nier fan, I think you'd really fall for the aesthetic of this world and the vibe that is presented through the music. Speaking of combat and music, let's talk about that. Firstly, this game has such a cool identity in music. I'm not just talking about some of the tracks being bangers, but the playable characters are called resonators. They have intro and outro skills, characters have a concerto meter to fill, complete special attacks or abilities. The pet or monster capturing system is called echoes, which are caused by reverberations. Do you see what I mean? The whole game has its identity tied in sound, which is a really dope theming that is only just accentuated by some of these killer boss themes that just scream hell yeah. The combat itself, as I'm sure you've already come to hear from other people giving their impressions, is that it's a lot of fun. The combat is built around teams of 3 with each character having a unique gimmick to them like most gacha games, but where they're different isn't just in an archetype like DPS, tank, or healer, but literally how you play. Attacks can be cancelled out of on the fly unless it's mid-animation. If your character is stuck in their ultimate, you could quick swap to another in the team. They'll complete their animation and you can tag in as if you're fighting at the same time, which is really dope. Characters such as the MC have these timing attacks where once the gourd lights up, boom, they'll do a special attack. There are all these little things that add up to make a really awesome combat system. If you want to compare it to their direct competitor Genshin, many characters can have the same feeling in Genshin due to just popping the skill, burst, moving on to the next character. Not every character is like this, but if you're delegated to a buffer or something, then that's all you do, and it can be a bit boring when pulling said characters. To prove my point, let's look at Alto and Mortefi. Both are gun characters, but vastly different aside from that one similarity. Alto's whole gimmick revolves around dashing and movement. You summon these wind gates that you can dash through to turn into mist, have increased move speed, and summon air bullets. You can also shoot through these to accumulate more of his concerto bar, or sound bar, I'm not really sure what that one's called, when it's full to have up to 6 extra bullets at one time on a foe, and it feels cool. Mobs get too close, you can dash out with your wind gates. Get a perfect dodge off, free wind gate. Need more air bullets and want to do that extra damage, you ult, then you wind gate. I'm simplifying it for sure, but it feels really fun playing with this guy. Mortefi is somebody I've definitely messed around with less. He serves as a slightly more traditional quick swap support. When the resonance circle is filled up, you can quick swap into him and it fills his concerto meter a bit. If you pop the skill and it's fully filled, then you can activate it. Now boom, he'll do extra attacks while you're playing on another character and buff your damage. He's definitely a more traditional support, but technically so is Alto because once you swap off of him, he buffs the arrow damage of the rest of your team. Not to mention, everybody has unique animations. Yes, even 4 stars from the same place. Yang Yang and Sanhua are both sword users but play completely different, and their animations also reflect that. All the gun characters have different animations and playstyles, the list goes on. That's not to say eventually some characters won't share animations with others. We genuinely won't know until the game drops, but there's a genuine reason to be excited for new characters gameplay wise, 4 star or 5 star. I have Kalkuro as my 5 star, and he's a ton of fun, but I find myself swapping between him and Alto a lot due to the variance in playstyle and weapon type. This isn't even discussing the parries and perfect dodges, which reward you for playing great. Parries reward you by taking a good chunk out of the boss's stagger meter. Perfect dodges not only have you avoiding hits, but you get a special attack afterwards, and even some energy for your ultimate, which is dope. A genuine reward for playing well. The boss fights all have their own unique themes and fight styles, many of them are fun to engage, and hey, if what I'm saying sounds interesting, well, the game will be free on release, so you can always give it a shot. The game isn't perfect though, and I do have some cons to the system, but I will say they're not a lot. One con is more of a quality of life feature. Sometimes the skip button will disappear from the top left corner, and other times it'll be there to skip. The translations are very bad for English at the moment. Many abilities read off nothing like how they appear in other languages, so this is something that needs to be fixed for release. The last con I felt like addressing would be things such as the farming in this game. So in this game, your build set is based off of the echoes you collect in the open world. This is cool because you can farm these essentially infinitely. When you run out of mobs in your world, you can go to a friend's and farm there. You can even farm together, which is awesome for casuals and people that just want to play with others. Because it costs nothing, it just might take a while if you want to full clear the map. The negative is that even though you can collect a lot of these echoes, you are still gated by the resin or stamina system of this game to upgrade the echoes and unlock their substat. I'll touch more on this in an endgame overview video because not everybody cares about this, but suffice to say, Wuthering Waves will be a grind fest if you want it to be. Look, overall, I'm very excited for Wuthering Waves. I was somebody that was expecting more combat content to come to Genshin, but this never really happened. That's fine, I'm not losing sleep over Genshin changing or not, but I was hoping for a similar style of game with endgame and a bit more depth to the combat, and it's here. If you're somebody that wants to be challenged, while I can't speak on how hard the endgame will get, it's definitely something you'd have a good time with for a few months at least. For the casual players, I'd still recommend giving it a shot, but I do think Kuro Games should add some more fun content, whether it's minigames, a housing system, or something else. I think it'd be great for the game. I do want to see this game succeed, but hey, a lot of what they've shown has been quality stuff, and I think if you're willing to give it a shot, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Wuthering Waves has a really solid foundation, and will be dope for a month. I just hope they use the potential this game has. Thank you so much for watching this video, thank you for your time, and if you enjoyed, please subscribe.